Okay, so I'm going to start the webinar. Basically, sorry about the delay. This is Amir Durrani, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. This webinar is being organized by, as you guys know very well, FAKT Exhibitions and the Solar Exhibition Pakistan. FAKT is the leading exhibition and conference organizing company in Pakistan, although we are having a little few problems today. We specialize in industry and corporate trade shows. They have about 25 industrial sectors, and they are UFI approved for event organizing, and they do this in accordance with international standards. Solar Pakistan is a sole exhibition of its kind in Pakistan that provides a platform for players from renewable energy sector to expand their portfolio by networking with other local and international companies. Solar Pakistan is a pioneer event for the solar industry. So as you know, this webinar is to get updates and connect with experts in your field. I'm going to start off. We have two speakers today. One is Ms. Simay Akar. She's joining us from, I presume, Turkey, Istanbul. Simay, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. I took a guess on the Istanbul part. And then we have Mr. Fahim Ashraf. He's joining us from Karachi, I presume.
Islamabad.
Islamabad. Excellent, excellent. So I think I'll allow you guys to now share screens. Simay, if you can, I'll give you the floor first, being our international guest, since I'm hosting this from Islamabad. So I will give the floor over to Simay. Let me quickly introduce Simay while she is figuring out her presentation. Simay Akar has been working in the energy industry since 2012. She specializes in solar and renewable energy fields with her work experience. She has worked in China and Turkey and mostly focuses on international commercial activities, including marketing, sales, and business development. She is currently working as renewable energy and clean tech consultant for several international projects. She has previously taken roles as sales and marketing director at ECO Renewable Energy, head of overseas marketing at Tailsun Solar, international business development and sales manager for solar cells at CSUN Eurasia, and several marketing corporate communication roles for Schneider Electric and Arcelor Beko. Besides her professional life, she is also a senior member of IEEE and a recognized award-winning volunteer since 2007. She has 13 years of IEEE experience in Power and Energy Society. She's also an active member of the Middle East Technical University Alumni Association and a member of the Energy Commission. So over to you, Simay.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me for this webinar. Like, it was a pleasure cooperating with the organizers, entire, just like experiences during the renewable energy. So as you mentioned that I worked for solar panel manufacturers in the past and lived in China. So like I would like to just like take this post-COVID conditions from different perspectives. Just repeating then, during the first reactions in the solar industry, like one of the main problems related to supply chain, considering the conditions of the Asian manufacturers, especially Chinese manufacturers, as the main global producers of many clean tech technologies, like the components of the solar panels, and not only solar, also wind, battery, and many other equipment manufacturers from China. Like, of course, there was a delay on the delivery at the very beginning, but and of course, and the rest of the industry was preparing the upcoming scenario, but we didn't know yet. So then it was the first reaction at the solar industry. And so today, like, I would like to just like divide this COVID situation into stages, and we all experience similar but also different scenarios in different parts of the world, because some countries are taking actions quickly, some countries are actually postponing some reactions, and that's the reason. So like these stages are actually not parallel to each other. First stage from China and other countries that we experience in different scenarios. But now the Chinese manufacturers are back to the track, and we can assume the ongoing manufacturing process is already in normal process, and but now it's like the rest of the countries are in the other stage, like of emergency for the survival. But for the industry, we are not at the survival state anymore. So because we passed couple of months that we just experienced the lockdowns, and during these lockdowns that some of the countries already took some initiatives to just make the change during the process. And it was actually another result. Some of the countries start questioning about their dependency for the Asian manufacturers, and they start discussing, of course, after the emergency stage, they start discussing about their own manufacturing facilities, just in order to survive in case of emergency situations, like but still it's still going on discussion. So like during the COVID scenarios that the industry faces a lot of challenges, as this is actually a new reality for many countries, and for considering constructing pandemic conditions. So what we experience, we still have in many countries pending and delayed site visit and inspections. So like then they cannot complete because of due to the lockdown and problems they face with. And there's a full pauses on the renewable energy projects construction. So like the installations are actually delayed. And we also have some delays permitting from the local authorities, which is actually another thing to deal and thing to consider for many governments all around, because there were a lot of deadlines for the renewable energy projects, as you may know well, and at this stage, so they need to restructure all these regulations, and they need to postpone the deadlines. That's another important point. So these delays will cause some losses financially. So if governments and authorities don't take the action and save the renewable energy investors in this case, but we have good news that many of those countries, especially not only Europe, but several countries in Europe and many others, they already restructured and considered this COVID condition for renewable energy industry. But unfortunately, some countries couldn't take that quick action because they have another emergency to deal with. But renewable energy industry is actually gaining power during this pandemic, because people start rediscussing about importance of renewable energy and energy independency during this time. So a renewable energy industry, solar industry, is not one of the industry is losing power. So this is actually good news for us. And of course, you know, like not just the inspections and installations, constructions delayed, also many projects were waiting the supply chain to come back to normal, and equipment delayed quite often during this time. And recently, Global Solar Council applied and survey and conveyed a survey, and I would like to share some results a little bit from their surveys. And they wanted to monitor and investigate what's going on in the solar industry. And according to their results, that 72.1% of the response reported decline in the orders compared to pre-emergency period, with 6 in 10 of these saying others down by up to 50%. So we have a lot of people responded. More than 70% of the participants of the survey responded they're having trouble already, like in this first stage of the pandemic. And solar businesses are also facing distributions to purchase of the goods and services. So like, again, more than 70% of the participants, they stated they already had difficulties in their supply chain. So like, actually this also, the survey result proves these statements that supply chain was the main problem during the first stage of the pandemic. But we just need to think about for the future. I mean, like, as I said earlier, I don't expect there's a lot, none of us expect like there's a button, then everything will be cleared and okay, we say, okay, COVID is over. This is not the scenario. So like, we have a new reality from now. So we will live with that for every stage of our life. But for the renewable energy industry, so like, we are already in that period. So like, we are experiencing that transition. So like, so we have, of course, challenges, but still there are also positive scenarios. So like, as I said earlier, few of the governments already took initiative, but all the authorities around, they need to restructure the renewable energy action plans. And we need to like more fair and smooth transition for this. And all parties need to be more reasonable, flexible, because of the deadlines that none of the parties should lose the power and lose the blood from this period. So like, to make the industry stronger, so flexibility to accommodate more solutions is important. And during this period, commercial solar market is raising out because the energy independency is important, and cost certainty ways to become more environmental friendly. So distribution generation is having trouble these days because small investments, they couldn't find enough supply, and due to the borders and lockdowns, and probably many of the projects, they already suffer from the supply chain, but distribution generation is one of them, and the small scale projects. But after the COVID, like the latest stages of the COVID, so we will probably see the distribution generation and the prosumers gaining more concepts. So in this level, energy transition, digitalization, and energy storage solution will gain more importance. The argument frequently leveled at the clean energy industry, despite the advantages being made in energy storage. So we will start discussing about the importance of the energy storage in that part, but we are not at that level yet. So the first winners will be the commercial solar projects and the utility scale, if governments will back to the track. So in some countries, especially the European authorities, they've taken actions already. And we are just like seeing a new energy transformation, and this is actually a massive social economic gain for everyone. And we will probably have in the new era, we will have more jobs in this stage. But currently, like, we are all having like financial problems, and the whole economy is like just changing. But in this transition, probably renewable energy industry will be one of the, not winner, but if the right action will be taken, renewable energy industry will be rising up. So like, there are also challenges. Not all the scenario is
is positive, of course. So like recently, International Energy Agency published an oil market report in April. So, and we all know, first time in the history, we have seen such a fall down for the oil prices. So like this is almost a record.
Sorry, Simai, maybe another five minutes and to wrap up.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wrapping up in 5 minutes, and we've seen this. So like because of this fall in the energy oil and gas prices, and the similar scenario is expected for also the electricity market. So like then Europe already has faced a record collapse in electricity prices. That will be a challenge. So and we'll like not us, but International Energy Agency is also expecting global energy demand will fall at least 6% this year due to the industry conditions. And everything is going back to normal. So like residential and small scale projects will be back to normal after lockdowns, but at least 2021. So like some other like close industries also affected, like electrical vehicle sales increased during this time, but one of the main largest EV markets, like in China, we see a serious decrease and damage. So then this is also another challenge for our industry as well. So so there's short-term impacts, like I would like to summarize what I've discussed already. In the short-term impacts for the first stages, like we've seen the supply of solar modules briefly delayed. So now it's going back to normal. And the module prices already decreased. So this is an advantage. We know we will see probably more non-Chinese suppliers in upcoming years because they're trying to find solutions to be more energy independent. But at the first stage, Chinese manufacturers will be back to normal, and we know Chinese module manufacturers, they're pretty flexible to find solutions in the crisis situation, and many of them will survive from this situation. Of course, they, as many manufacturers and of other industries, they will get damaged, but it's not at that level. It's my expectation. And financing. So like during this period, considering the world economy, access to financing will be harder, and financing institutions are delaying the renewable energy projects these days. But when we find more flexible new business models, they will be back to the normal as well. And lastly, demand. The construction of large and small projects, they slow down, but then from 2021, they will come back to normal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simai. So that was very good. Before I move to the next presenter, just for the sake of the participants, let me just be clear that please, the questions you have for Simai, if you could actually just start typing them in or send them in, and I'll make a list of them. Once Fahim has finished his presentation, then we can sort of open up the floor for questions. Simai, as you're the host now, if you could change the host back to solar webinar while I'm giving an introduction for Fahim. First and foremost, Fahim, are you there? Hello?
Yes, I am there.
Okay, we lost your video, so I didn't know if you were there. Okay, so please allow me to quickly introduce Fahim. Fahim is the CEO of Zeus Energy Private Limited and the CEO of Avalon Residencia. He is a senior member of the Pakistan Solar Association. Fahim is involved in the energy sector, real estate, equipment business, indenting. Covers a pretty broad spectrum. Fahim has been working in the solar energy industry since 2011. He worked on small-scale IFC DC products, solar street lights, on-grid and off-grid projects. He has also previously been working with top tier companies and has been very instrumental in introducing new products. So Fahim, over to you. And, I hope that you will be able to shed some further light on this post-COVID scenario that you see for the industry. Thank you. Over to you, Fahim.
First of all, I would like to say that this coronavirus will remain in the world for, I think, more than 2020 and maybe in mid of 2021 or end of 2021. As soon it will, and it will be helpful for everyone, but we need to see how the things had started affected us and how it will be affecting the organization in the future. Now, if we if we talk about the solar industry in Pakistan, there have been the different players in the industry. Some of the players are the small players, retailers, and some are the medium and the large enterprises. The impact of the coronavirus have been a mixed signal because few of the big organizations or few of the large organizations have a severe impact because they will, the solar business, they need to go to meet the client and meet different organizations. But due to Corona, due to transportation problems, not lot of people can meet them. In the same way, the small organization in a small area, if there was some service and some few projects, they have give more profit margin in providing those services. So they get some benefit. At the same time, they also feel some logistic issues as well. In the when the Corona hit Pakistan, it was the March, and at that time it was the peak time when the solar industry starting in Pakistan. Now the companies have the big companies or a lot of organizations have imported a lot of stock of panels, energy storage devices, and a lot of things, and they faced a lot of liquidity problem because for the last 2 months lot of sales have been dropped a lot, more than 80% sales drop. And at the same time, the China was coming out of the Corona, and the whole world was going in the Corona. So there was a lot of Chinese companies start production, and there was a lot of production in the China, and the demand of the solar products due to the transportation and other things have decreased. So the prices of the solar products have decreased substantially. So the companies have faced some problems. Now I will, getting back to the SMEs sectors, I would like to highlight a SMEDA study which have been done on almost 1,000 organizations, and there are a few points which we should consider. That according to SMEDA survey, 95% of the organization experienced reduction in their operation. 92% of the organization wrote disturbance in the supply chain. 48% of the enterprises have laid down their employees. 89% enterprises report financial issues, and 95% reported reduction in work. So this is a very severe situation due to Corona. Now, what we should learn what happened in the solar industry, that solar industry faced problems. Now, whatever the sales were happening, the sales become deferred, the project get postponed or canceled. Marketing and selling of the new clients become very difficult. Few of the organizations have converted themselves to the technology. They have started using the Facebook and the live sales, but these are very few organizations. Then they were facing the transportation issue and the financial issue, the people management issue. If we wanted to provide some service in some other area and we wanted some key spare parts, it could not be transferred between the cities. So it was a major issue. Inventory issue, because every product in reaching all Pakistan become a major issue. And like I said, the market fluctuation, there were some price hikes, there was increased demand or increased supply and the currency fluctuation. So these are the major problems with the in the coronavirus the industry have faced. what we should have learned from this coronavirus, the organization need to understand their organizational setup. One thing is the most important, that liquidity is most important. In the organization, the cash is king. So the organization, if we look for the 2 months time, the organization who have the more cash, they were the more stable organization, and they were able to have more resistance than just, okay. Now my video is on. Let me see. Okay, my video is now.
Please go ahead. Don't worry. I think it's better if you see your face. At least the audience can relate to you.
Okay. So other than this, the sustainability of the business become very important. Now the organization start thinking to have a more efficient organizational structure. Few organizational structures have been, all the organizations start thinking which were the key person, which are the organization person they should hire, they should not hire, or they should change it. The operational challenges the organizational face, and they were the new demands of these coronavirus, that the organization do two most important things. Number one, they should adopt technology. This technology is not only with their employees, but also with the customers, because a lot of the earlier than the corona, the customer like to meet a lot in person, but in the coronavirus, there were few clients on which we asked them to give them their electricity bills or their online survey and the satellite survey and this Zoom webinar, lot of Zoom webinar, lot of activities online have been started with the customers as well, and within the organization as well. So the overall environment start changing, and the buying patterns start changing stepwise, gradually it's taking. Another thing which the business are looking into is to creating more partnerships with the local companies, more partnership with the supply chain to have a feasible business. If they cannot reach at once, and if they cannot reach at once, they should have somebody taking care of your clients, they can have the more. So this coronavirus is making an organization more smart. The organization which are ready to change, the organization which are ready to adopt the coronavirus situation and act accordingly will survive in this coronavirus. And in the same wise, the organizations need to think what are the key things, what are, because before coronavirus, each organization carries some baggage, some extra baggage, and they start, okay, this is nothing. But now the organizations are getting smart. They are trying to think what are their road barriers, what are the baggages. So this is the new process that we should do. Okay, what were the major problem, like in Pakistan, if we talk about specifically Pakistan, the big projects, there was a Sindh project that was coming up. It was 200,000 solar DC system that is hold. The PMIC project, DC project that is hold. There was a Punjab project on from water management that is kind of hold. There are few, there is a school project that is going to start very soon. The projects have been paused, and as a lot of people know, these days the banks are giving financing to the customers. Now, we also need to have a partnership with the other organization, the bank. Due to Corona, they have made the shift. Like if they 10 people are working in one branch, they will say, okay, 3 people work in this day or 4 people in this day. So due to Corona, there was too much pressure on the banks as well. So all the banking process, all the mega projects and everything which were going to get the finances, they get delayed. So one thing the people should understand in this, now the time will take more. So this is the lot of thing, and It is changing the market dynamics and online marketing and change of operations. So what is the way forward with the organization in the solar industry should look is to have a better organizational structure, to have a technology improvement, deployment of the new softwares. Currently, in fact, few people are looking for the new software. Before Corona, Microsoft software of the field service were looking too techy for Pakistan business, or a software which go to on the site and give all the information and artificial intelligence. It was too techy and it was too costly. It was like not suitable. But after Corona and what we see after 1 year or 2 years, these will be the demand of the future. These will be the demand of now. The people need to have few people on site and more on the head office, and that is only possible with the latest software, better technology improvement, subcontract and franchising, because the buyer is mostly on the internet. The buyer is searching for everyone, all the organization. He have more time to search. He have more time to do it. So the better organization, if they have the franchise with the bigger organization, if they have the time to evaluate everything. So not only the bigger organization get benefit from the partnership from the smaller organization and regional players, the regional player will get more benefit from the big organization. So franchise would be the new trend in solar industry. Partnership, subcontract will become more common in Pakistan. And one of the most important thing which everyone is saying is the supply chain. Supply chain and the supply chain have affected heavily in this business, and supply chain partnerships and the partnership with the other players. If you do not have the product, you can borrow product from your competitor. So you need to make an environment that will be helpful for everyone. And this way, if we work together, everyone work together, that would be the more, that would be the thing to do it. And what I will see, if the organization start working on this, after Corona, the solar industry will grow much stronger and more efficient after Corona. This is what I will see. These are the few points which I will like to see, and everything have been covered so far. So if there is any question, we can argue on that and discuss on that.
Well, Fahim, thank you very much. This has been very useful. There are a few questions. May I just tell all the people who are the participants? I see there are about 38, 40 participants. They're fluctuating between that number. If you all could type in your questions or raise your hand, I think that would be very useful for me, and it will make it easier for me to sort of organize these questions. But before so there are already 3 or 4 questions that have lined up. Can I just actually start with 2 from my side? And I think these are both for, and we'll maybe give Simai the floor first and then to you, Fahim. I have a macro question, which I think I still did not get a clear answer on, and I think maybe the audience also wants to know. As far as Simai mentioning, 2 things have really happened, right? So because post-COVID, there has been overall lowering of energy demand. Simai gave a figure of 6% from IEA. But actually, if you look at it, so overall, because 3.5 million flights a day not happening, generally an overall submission in sort of subvention in demand. What is the future of this? Do you see that demand coming back online? Number one, and number 2, there's the context of the lower oil price. So given these 2 things, a lower energy demand and a lower oil price, not really looking like it's going to hit the $50 to $60 or $65 per barrel mark for Brent, as we were which is really the sustainability level for a lot of the producers. What is the future for the renewable industry? I mean, how do you see that? Is it going to be bullish or is it going to be bearish? So I think I would like one comment on that, and then maybe we'll move to other questions. And I'll hand it over to Simai first, and then you, Fahim, for your comments quickly.
Sure. Firstly, I see this as an advantage. So like for the short term, it's not an advantage because like this decrease on the energy electricity demand is temporary. Due to the COVID conditions, like many industries shut down, there are lockdowns, the border closed. And so like when we check the results, like there's an increase on the like residential consumption because people are at home and industry is not working. So that's actually very temporary. So the demand will come back. And you know, like considering and comparing to oil prices, and there are serious, like there are reasons behind that. So like it is actually also temporary thing. And for the greener economy and sustainable future discussions, renewable energy has a potential to grow. So like when the demand is back, so renewable energy will be rising up still. So this is just like, because like there were stocks of the oil prices. They're like this. Probably I don't want to go so deeper, but it's a huge discussion how the prices drop off. And but then we also need to note the supply chain and the cost of the renewable energy is also decreasing. For during the period also due to the stocks and when they're back. So like renewable energy, especially solar, like and also the policies will also follow these decreases in the renewable energy supply chain prices. So we'll be back on track and everything will be back to normal.
Okay, over to Fahim. Your comments, please.
Okay, as far if you consider Pakistan, the renewable sector demand, for me, even in the short term and even in the long term, it will not reduce. One thing is, specifically to Pakistan, it's not only the electricity problem. The major problem in Pakistan is the network, is the transmission line in Pakistan. So renewable energy will remain. So even if you reduce the oil, which if you see that dollar exchange rate for last 2 years, it has been increasing by 30 to 40%, but the electricity costs have not increasing to 30 to 40%. So even if you reduce the oil, we will say the government will maintain the current level of the price in future. So at that current level of price, the organization would make a lot of profit in converting to reliable energy, and that is renewable energy. And we talk about the area, if you see in Pakistan, more than 5 million people are without grid and 50 million people are with the bad grid, more than 18 hours load shedding. So this demand will continue. So the demand will be slow, but renewable sector, due to price, due to the market problems of our industry, it will remain. Of our country, it will remain. It will not reduce.
Okay, thanks a lot, Fahim. Let me start with some more questions here. And one of the things which, and I'm trying to type these down, so bear with me. So one of the first questions that's come, and I'm going to just read it out. It says, solar innovations going ahead, which would increase efficiency of panels, new battery tech at lower cost, boosting solar to a greater audience through feasibility. So basically, I think the question that is being asked here is that what are the immediate innovations we are looking at in the industry in terms of both efficiency of panel and is there going to be a push and what is the feasibility of this happening? That's one question. And basically the other one is we're going to wait on that. So let's take this first question first. So any one of you can take that, either Simai or Fahim or both of you.
So if
maybe
I would
first
say,
Fahim.
the better, there are a lot of technologies that is happening in solar panel industry. The few big technologies are IBC, like SunPower, Topcon, like Jolie Solar, HJT heterojunction technology like Genergy or Panasonic. So they reach around 28% efficiency as well. So, but what the client right now in Pakistan, if we say, or the most of the world, the technology which the people are using is monopark or monoshielding. Now the technology, the people will start thinking about the cost per unit. So the buying pattern will shift from monopark to bifacial panel, and from bifacial to HJT. If not HJT, it will remain till bifacial, because people or the project cost per unit or cost per unit will determine which technology will prevail. Until and unless the new technologies, which are there for last many years, will reduce to a commercial rate, more buying rate, they will not get more popular. So this is with the solar panel. As for the technology of the energy storage device, we already have seen the lithium battery have, the prices have reduced a lot. And in Pakistan, the microgrids are having on the lithium, and the new technology supercapacitor with the 45 years life is also come in Pakistan, and there in KPK, one organization is doing a microgrid project on that as well. So cost per unit and the duration of that technology will increase. Solar buyer or customer will only go on logical. Now as the solar is going with the on-grid companies, the big companies, the financial organization will always calculate how much money they are putting in it and what they are getting out of it. The ROI will become crystal clear on this technology. I think Ms. Simi can add more.
Okay, Simai, over to you.
Thank you. So actually, in the last couple of years, especially the last 2 years, many of those panel manufacturers, at least, they're just focusing on LCOE, lowering the LCOE, and trying to extend their production capacity for their new R&D products and new technologies. But still, it was actually expected to have more extension, but even extension for the new technologies, because like all those, you know, like the new technologies and solar technology you were mentioning. So like, it's actually another question, you know, like you can just launch your product, but how much you're able to produce on this. So like here, indeed, in the short term period of the pandemic conditions, I don't really expect so many panel manufacturers will extend their technology, their capacity for the new technologies. But, you know, like all the discussions we were, you know, focusing earlier, like the prices will decrease somehow. So like there will be stock and there will be like a demand. So they need to balance first. Probably the, you know, some of the large manufacturers, we will able to see then they will extend their capacity, because, you know, this is like, this sounds, I know, interesting that, you know, like when you have the crisis, still there will be some of them winning and extending the capacity. So we will see how much the what is the percentage of the capacity they will increase in new technologies. But for the R&D side, that many of those panel manufacturers, they already focus on lowering LCOE, and their product is already ready to go, and it's just like it's they need to just balance the capacity purchase. But here that we are just seeing the importance of the energy storage technologies, as you mentioned, lithium batteries, lithium-ion batteries. So like probably like the panel manufacturers will be balancing their capacity, but it's important for all of us just to have a reasonable pricing, and just like they should able to feed the demand on time. So then the renewable industry will grow, because they're already doing well on the LCOE. But to support the LCOE, so we actually see the importance of the energy storage companies and their new R&D products in the stage. So like the energy storage is rising up.
Okay, thanks for that. Let me get back to one question which has been posed, which I think is interesting. It kind of relates to the previous question, but let's see if you guys can, and I think this, maybe you can start, Fahim, on this one. As you know that we are talking about the energy mix in Pakistan, right? And in the energy mix, there is obviously still the fossils that are a great part of the mix. So the question is that given these prices, and Simai has already alluded to the fact that these prices are the sort of the down prices is a temporary effect. I can argue with her on that, but let's assume in the next 6 months to a year, these prices stay below $50 a barrel on the average. And what is the impact you see on the solar and renewable industry, given these prices staying there, given the current energy mix in Pakistan? And then maybe we can move to Simai, who can talk about this more in the global context or in the context of Turkey. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, in Pakistan, there are few PPAs which are on the thermal power. It's not all our energy is coming from the thermal power, but having the low price as such as right now, I think it will be, the price would be still reaching around 10 or less than $10 because the gas per unit cost was touching 5 rupees or 6 rupees per unit price. But the solar, which recently in the Corona, I was seeing it was Dubai or Saudi, they have recently achieved the lowest ever tariff in it was 2 gigawatt or 1 gigawatt, I don't remember, but the tariff of 1.06 or $1.05.
We are not going to speculate on large gigawatt projects because they have issues. Can we keep to Pakistan? Because I think the question is,
so given
the mix in Pakistan, why would CPPA choose to buy from either or? So we're looking at installed capacity, looking at what is there for wind and solar and renewables, and any new PPAs coming in. I think let's talk about that.
So our contract with the PPAs they must have a capacity tax, and they have the minimum, the profit they have. Even if you reduce their input price, that would be the petroleum prices which you are referring to, still the price will reach around 8 to 10 rupees per unit probably. So in the long term, even in the short term, like I mentioned earlier, in Pakistan, there is no problem of the complete supply. The major problem is in the transmission. So in Pakistan, the transmission of the electricity is a bigger problem than the generation of the electricity. So we have the bad patches, like if it is the Multan region, Mapco region, if you have a supply in Islamabad, but it cannot reach Multan or some areas. So at that, on those areas, the independent solar or small solar power suit them more. There are a lot of bottlenecks in Pakistan transmission line.
No, that's fine. I mean, we were not going to talk about transmission, but the thing is that I hear your point. Let me just go back to one other question, which is a particular question. Simai, I'll come back to you, but there's a question I think for Fahim. And the question says that there is a few projects which got the tariffs in the past 6 months in Pakistan. Now, because of the coronavirus, the process of the LOS, letter of support, signing PPA is delayed. Can the sponsor still get the financial close and deadline? Will the government extend the validity of the tariff? So what's your view on this?
I think everything is happening in Pakistan. So maybe due to Corona, they will extend the deadline. And I think there are two recently if we talk about solar, two companies, Artistic Solar and another solar company, I don't remember, get a license of PPA in just last 1 month. So the process will, like I mentioned earlier, the process will happen, but the time duration will extend. So the time duration of all the projects, if the project was supposed to happen in 2 months time or 4 months time, now it might take 1 year time or 14 months or 16 months. So the time duration will increase, but all the projects, the major projects will happen today, not today, maybe after 4 months or 6 months. The process line will remain same. The basic project will remain same.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we are now approaching 3:40. We have, I think, overshot by 10 minutes, but we were late in kind of starting. So I'll, 2 or 3 quick questions. There is one question for which, I mean, about virtual exhibitions in Pakistan, when is going to be the next attempt? So I think that the answer from FAKT is that they're actually working on virtual exhibitions as we speak. So they will announce the arrival of these virtual events very soon. I have, before we close, two questions. And one of them basically is relating to this discussion. I think, Simayo, to you, you said that in the future post-COVID, distributed generation will not take off as willingly. I'm kind of find that interesting and also a bit speculative, given that post-COVID, I see a lot more requirement for energy independence, which you alluded to by saying that people would like to reshore, establish manufacturing locally so that they don't rely too much on these sort of broken supply chains. So maybe Chinese companies, for example, could be innovative and move into countries like they've moved into Portugal for wind. So the first question is, what do you see on distributed generation? And the second question, I think, is to both the panelists, which is, I think it was an interesting question, that given that the work from home is intensifying and we don't see this digital sort of take on life and the gig economy changing, do you both see a sharp rise in home consumption? And what does that mean for the future of the solar industry? So I think with these two questions, I'll maybe give Simai the floor first, and then we'll come to Fahim.
I think my answer will be like addressing to each of the questions. So like, it was a good point. So like, my point here, maybe I need to clarify more there. For the first stages, like the short period of the post-COVID conditions. So due to the like the shutdowns and lockdowns and the borders and supply chain delays, distribution generation and the small scale projects will not be the first target at the first stage, but in the very short period of time. And then, because we're like already questioning about energy independency, so then we will see the sharp rising on the distribution generation, because when we have better solutions in the up stages and the upcoming stages, so like the first, like, because there, as I said earlier, like there is no like sharp transition. There will be very smooth transition. It will be a period for all of us, like the COVID and even the post-COVID period. So the distribution generation will be rising up. And then addressing the second question, so like home consumptions and residential, and also like here, like some of the companies already just learned virtual working. And we have a new virtual reality. So like we will have a new era in any part of the life. It's not only the industry, but renewable energy industry is directly affecting for the new virtual reality. And we have a new norm from this COVID. In the new norms, so we will see like the importance of the distribution generation, and even all the distribution companies, energy distribution companies, and so on. They will create new models for the survival, and then and probably, as you said, it's a good point. For any crisis, like the Chinese manufacturers, they find some solutions like to adapt the new conditions. So like when probably we will see more manufacturers outside of China, but my expectations and Chinese players, they will get involved in somehow. So this is actually another answer for the question, but distribution generation and energy transition and digitalization, they are the future for us.
Okay, no, I'm very happy to hear that. And, just for the audience, if I may say that, there was in the last 2 years, a kind of a decline in what we call community power in Europe. And community power is essentially based on distributed generation, though the scale in Europe is very different. But however, I mean, what I hear Simai alluding to is that this is a time for resurgence as we go towards more energy independence. So Fahim, over to you with both the questions.
So as far as the distribution, SME have explained it, I can answer for the second question, that is the residential consumption pattern. So recently, if we see the Pakistan consumption pattern is usually in the summer, 40% daytime, and the 60% of your bill is consumed in night. And in the winter, the daytime pattern would be less, and the winter, the daytime would be 30% and the 70% in night. So in this scenario, this electricity pattern will change. The daytime consumption will change. So in terms of the SME or the solar industry, so if the organization which are working on the on-grid project and the minimum energy storage, they will require more energy in residential sector, more panels to have more AC on, more power on for the residential. If we see 6 months time. 6 months time, if the pattern remain and the coronavirus do not change, the person who was willing to install 10 kilowatt may go for a 15 kilowatt in future because their AC and the pattern increase.
Okay, so I was going to not stop here, but I think there are two interesting questions which I think we should address. I have another webinar starting in about 15 minutes, so I need to also take a leave. But I think the first thing is, I think, Fahim, you mentioned something earlier, and this is for you, about the big companies, large inventories, etc., and that they're having problems. And then you talked about going into partnership with smaller companies. Now, there's a very logical question. I have an answer for it, but I would rather you answer it, which is that why would these big companies in Pakistan try to partner with the smaller companies? Why did you say that? What's the logic behind that? So that's one question. And if you can quickly address that, I'll ask the last one to Simai.
Okay, the big companies, like if you study the solar segment in Pakistan, if the big companies are going with smaller companies, the big companies, they will get an advantage to reduce their fixed cost. They get an advantage of a local presence, local person goodwill in that area that will create more demand. And a lot of services which you like to give in the local area, if you train the person in the local area, the cost of operation will reduce substantially. So it will be a win-win situation if you are going to operate in a far areas, in areas where the transportation become a real problem, and the marketing, because for a maturing one client in a solar industry in Pakistan, in the bigger client, you need to go with that client 4, 5, 6 times to meet. So for you and for your team to meet in those areas would be, in these days, will not be that much advisable. So the local persons and the, if you consider local context, of course, the big companies need to lay down their rules. They need to train the local person, the companies who are doing the franchise.
I think I get that, Fahim. I think that's a very, very logical answer. And I think that whoever put this question, just for the audience, the answer Fahim put is very, very right. It's about using the smaller networks to offset the costs of actually fielding your own staff. It's kind of reaching out and networking through the tentacles of the smaller businesses in the localized areas. And I think that goes for simple companies like Brighter Light in Pakistan and others who work in the home solar space. And also I think it applies for the large people trying to get into the larger solar space, whether it be distributed at village level or otherwise. So Simai, last question comes to you. Basically, this is a twofold question. The first is more political. It's like, what do you see on the politics of especially solar panel manufacturing, China versus rest of the world, etc.? Any views on that? Very, very short views. And the last one is kind of almost challenging us, saying, how could you say that solar industry will flourish after COVID-19? So I think we can talk a whole day about them, but let's give like very short 2-line answers, huh? The politics, and then why do we say solar will flourish after COVID-19?
And so that's just, I'll give very, well, actually, I'll give the same answer for both, but as you said, these are like another maybe a webinar topic, but So, you know, just like in order to survive from the conditions, you know, collaboration will matter somehow. Like, you know, just like we already talked about energy independency. So many countries, many of us, not us, but many of those countries around, they need new models, they need to restructure their models, they need to find different solutions, rebuild a green economy after the crisis. This is important. And global, like by building local independent models, global collaboration is important because none of the transition could be sharp. And with collaboration, we can build a greener future for all of us. Then we can survive. So like, we cannot just like turn our back and do something, you know, like by collaborating, by like, everybody will be the winner. So from this scenario, so we need to cooperate.
No, thank you very much for that. And I mean, you know, in closing, let me first and foremost thank all of the participants, and also Fahim, you and Simai yourself. And, you know, I apologize on behalf of the organizers for the kind of delay in start and everything. I'm sure they'll make a better effort next time. But let me close on something for those people who are naysayers on what globalization would look like. So 2 weeks ago, there was an article by Danny Roderick. For those of you who don't read him, please do. He's a very famous economist. And Danny talks about the future of globalization. And in the future of globalization, I think that post-COVID, if you read, is going to move from a globalization on economics to a globalization on social issues and on the environment. So what we will see is the letting down or lessening of the supply chains of movement of materials or inputs such as panels, but we will see a lot more movement on the globalization of exchange of technology, of reshoring. So for example, Chinese companies or other companies moving into other countries and actually manufacturing locally, using digital technologies to reach out. So I think that the exchange of information is the new globalization, and the realization that human health comes first will obviously, as Simai put it, you know, encourage the move to, and I don't want to use the word a green economy, but I use the word a sustainable economy, whether that sustainability comes from solar or a solar hybrid or a mesh of various renewable technologies. I think that's the future for us. So thank you very much, Simai, for joining us from Istanbul. And Ashraf, thank you for joining from my neighborhood in Islamabad. And thank you, everybody, for this. It's been lovely. Hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.